ING issued a bond with an 8% coupon and maturity of 10 years. The bond was issued at par value. The face value is 1,000 and pays quarterly. Due to the crisis, the bond is downgraded from AAA to BB. The yield to maturity on the BB bond is 10% and has still 7 years to maturity. So the question is, what is the current price of the ING bond?
Okay, so now first of all, let us write down. Let's say I write it down, slide 21, downgrade by Fitch. And what do we know? It's a coupon of 8%. Another thing we know is it had a maturity of 10 years initially when it was issued. Now let's say 3 years have gone by because the maturity nowadays is 7 years. 7 years. And what do we know? That the yield to maturity is
10%.
10%. 10%. Now, referring to the previous video, what we already know from Martina, because they ask us what is the current price of this bond. By the way, we know that the face value is 1,000. What is the current price of the bond? Now, the exact price I cannot tell you, but I immediately can tell you, Martina, that the bond price will be
lower than 1,000.
Lower than 1,000, because we now see that the coupon is smaller than the yield to maturity, which immediately implies that the bond price
will be lower than 1,000.
Will be lower than 1,000. Lower than 1,000. I should write down lower, not is 1,000, lower than 1,000. Okay, this is what we already know. What is it exactly? Okay, we're going to calculate this. So how should we do this?
First of all, look at the coupon. So 8% of 1,000 is $80.
Yes.
But they pay it quarterly. So then we divide it by 4.
So the coupon which we get each 3 months, so each quarter of a year, is 8% of 1,000. So this 1,000 is referring to the face value. Divided by 4 is actually 20. We get 4 times 20 each year. How many years are there still left? Now there are 7 years left. Yes, Martina, please talk.
7 years left, and they pay it quarterly, so you should do 7 multiplied by 4 as well, to see how many times you will get your coupon.
Yeah, so the structure actually of this bond is, if we want to come up with a bond price, then we would say we get 20, the first one, we get 20. How many times do we get 20?
28 times.
28 times. This is 28. And in this last year, in the 28th quarter,
you get 1,000 back.
1,000 back. Now these things should be discounted. And the yield to maturity now is 10%. Perfect, Martina.
Divided by 4.
And this one is?
1 plus 10% divided by 4 to the power of 2.
Everybody sees what I'm doing. To the power 28. To the power 28. So, this is the structure. But let's say we don't have the time nor the energy to do this for all these numbers. So, thank God there is an easier formula. The formula states, Martina.
1 minus 1 plus r, so that would be 0.25 divided by 4.
To the power minus 28.
Yeah, exactly, divided by r, so 0.025 plus 1,000 divided by 1.025 to the power of 28.
Yes, this is how we do it. This is how we come up with the bond price. Because this piece here is referring to this whole string, those 28 times I get 20 discounted, and this is just the face value discounted, which I get back in year 7. By the way, before we start calculating, everybody sees, let's say, probably the yield to maturity at the initial public offering was 8%. So usually things are issued at par, because if the yield to maturity is the coupon is 8%, the initial bond price would be 1,000, which is normally the issue price. But what happened, this is why the exercise is called a downgrade by Fitch, probably due difficulties, the risk or the default risk on those ING bonds has increased. So the yield to maturity has increased from 8 to 10%. And this is why the bond price drops. Because before we calculate this answer, we should know that the bond price drops. And we already knew this from this line here. This is the whole idea. Now, let us get our calculator. This is, let's say, your HVA, average Joe HVA calculator. So let us do the first part. So that's 20 times bracket. So for the nominator, and then it's 1 minus 1025 to the power
Minus 28
minus 28. Perfect, Martina.
divided by
Bracket divided by bracket. So this is plus this part 1,000 divided by 1.025
to the power 28.
to the power 28 gives us a very nice number of a little bit more than $900. What is it in euros? And 18 cents. This is how we should come up to this to this answer. Right? So this is how you calculate this. The second question is, what is the effect of the downgrade? Now, what is the effect of the downgrade of this thing I wrote down here? If the yield to maturity increases because of, let's say, ING is a much less solvent entity as it was. So Morten said people downgrade, Fitch downgrades ING. What is the consequence, Martina?
The discounting factor is higher, so that immediately states that the end value, so the bond price, will be lower.
Yes.
So the downgrade means that the bond value dropped.
Yeah, the bond value dropped. But what, for instance, what does this, let's say, immediately imply for ING?
Well, they will have more cost.
They will have more cost because what are they going to pay?
They have to pay the coupon rate.
Yeah, which is 8% and didn't change because it was fixed in the contract. So for the next 10 years they would pay 8%, and if the yield to maturity increases, they still pay 8%. So nothing changes, right?
Not on short term, but on long term maybe?
Yes, on long term. And how does it change on the long term? It changes on the long term in the sense like that. If they want to refinance themselves, for instance by issuing new bonds again,
Then it will be more.
they have to pay a coupon of 10% because usually we want to issue at 1,000. So the coupon and the yield to maturity should be the same.
Yeah.
So they should pay a higher coupon. So refinancing becomes problematic if this yield to maturity stays for the next 7 years. Let's say if the downgrades happen, let's say no physical cash flows are changing because they still pay the 8% or let's say the 4 times 20 each year. Okay, thank you for listening.